In the late afternoon sun of January 26, 1966, Glenelg Beach in Adelaide was alive with laughter and the sound of children playing. The sand, warmed by hours of summer sun, cradled the footprints of families and holidaymakers. Among them were 3 siblings, Jane, aged 9, Arnna, 7, and Grant Beaumont, aged 4, whose bright swimsuits and eager faces darted between the waves and the strip of shops beyond. They were, in every respect, ordinary children on an ordinary holiday. But at roughly 5 p.m., ordinary gave way to something unspeakable. Their mother, Nancy Beaumont, watched from a shaded bench as Jane and Arnna collected shells at the water's edge, while little Grant chased seagulls along the tide line. Every few minutes, she called to them, urging them not to stray too far. Around 5:10, when the girls asked to buy ice creams from the kiosk, she agreed, but only if they stayed together and returned by 5:30, in time for dinner. The trio waved and set off down the esplanade, giggling in the sunlight. At 5:15, the Beaumont children reached the group of shops that lined Jetty Road. A shopkeeper later recalled the girls peering into the newsagent's window, animatedly pointing at postcards and comic books. They pressed their little hands against the glass, momentarily oblivious to the world behind them, and then, just like that, they were gone. That evening, when Nancy glanced up from her magazine, she noticed the beach was thinning. The laughter faded to a distant hum. She glanced at her watch, 5:45, and realized her children had not returned. At first, she thought they might have been delayed by a wave or distracted by a seashell. But as 6 came and went, unease blossomed into panic. She rose, scanning the sand, calling their names. A few sympathetic faces helped her search nearby stalls. No Jane. No Arnna. No Grant. By 7 p.m., the police were summoned. Officers sealed off the beach, doorways, and shop entrances. Witnesses were interviewed. A tourist who'd glimpsed the children walking toward the rotunda, a man who'd offered them ice creams 5 minutes after they'd vanished from their mother's view, a bus driver who'd seen 3 children matching their description near a hotel. Yet none came forward with certainty, only fleeting impressions, unreliable in the rush of that golden afternoon. In the days that followed, tens of thousands of flyers plastered lampposts across Adelaide and beyond. Grainy black and white photos of Jane, Arnna, and Grant, faces turned to the camera in school portraits or holiday snapshots. Every lead was chased, every tip was logged, but nothing fit the puzzle. No luggage was left unclaimed at bus depots. No ransom note arrived. No sighting proved definitive. As the summer heat gave way to autumn, the case grew cold. Yet the Beaumont disappearance refused to fade. It haunted the national psyche, the image of 3 smiling children dissolving into thin air on a crowded beach. Nancy and her husband Jim combed the country for years, offering rewards, granting interviews, and pleading on television. They refused to believe the worst, that their children had been taken forever. Rumors swirled of secret sightings in country towns, elusive foster children with uncanny memories of Adelaide's foreshore. The Beaumonts chased each one, sometimes boarding late-night buses, sometimes traveling by car into the outback. Yet every hopeful lead ended in disappointment. In 1968, amidst their grief, Nancy and Jim separated, each unable to bear the weight of loss. Over the decades, they would divorce, and later, Jim would remarry. Nancy remained devoted to the search, her home a shrine of photographs and case files. She passed away in 2019, still clinging to the hope that her children might be returned to her one day. Over the past 5 decades, countless theories have sprouted, each striving to explain the inexplicable. Abduction by a stranger. The most widely accepted theory posits that an opportunistic predator saw 3 unsupervised children on a public beach and seized his chance. Supporters point to the broken railing beneath the rotunda, where Jane, Arnna, and Grant were last seen, as an entry point to a waiting vehicle. But despite extensive searches, no car tracks or seats with traces of their DNA have ever surfaced. Trafficking ring. In the late 1960s, whispers emerged of an international child trafficking ring operating out of southern Australia. Investigators followed rumors of young girls being smuggled overseas under false identities. Yet no evidence, no forged documents, no clandestine border crossings ever materialized. Family secret. A darker theory suggests a family member's involvement. a jealous uncle, a resentful neighbor. Some pointed to small inconsistencies in the Beaumont statements or the presence of a local man who'd once been arrested for indecent exposure. Police probed these leads, even exhuming his grave decades later for DNA. Every test, every angle, came back negative. Witchcraft and the occult. In the underbelly of 1960s Australia, fringe groups dabbled in esoteric rites. One self-proclaimed medium insisted the Beaumont children had been sacrificed in a ritual under the beach's ancient dunes. These wild claims sparked headlines for a week, then vanished, as no credible proof emerged. Custodial error. Some insiders speculated that the children had been mistakenly taken into protective custody, perhaps by an overzealous social worker alarmed by their mother's momentary distraction. Yet no record exists of any such intervention, and social services firmly deny any connection. In the 2000s, the case saw a resurgence thanks to advances in DNA and digital technology. In 2007, over 5,000 people in South Australia voluntarily provided DNA samples as part of Operation Persist, hoping to match relatives of the missing trio. Computer algorithms sifted through genealogy trees, narrowing down hundreds of families, yet none linked to the Beaumont line. Meanwhile, forensic artists created age-progressed sketches of how Jane, Arnna, and Grant might look decades on. Now women in their 60s and a man in his late 50s. Appeals aired on national television, stirring public memory. Each time, family members watched with bated breath, and each time, no one came forward. In 2020, renewed interest followed the reopening of case files and the release of a comprehensive 4-part podcast that dug into archival interviews and unexamined leads. The podcast's producers uncovered a witness statement from 1966 that had never been followed up. A man who'd driven past the rotunda in a blue sedan at 5:15 p.m., his headlights illuminating the children at the rails. Police re-interviewed his relatives, though. After nearly 60 years, memories have faded and the suspect is long deceased. Perhaps it is the innocence of the victims that grips us so tightly. 3 children, siblings bound by laughter and sisterly bonds, vanish without a trace from a place meant for joy and sunshine. Their disappearance strikes at a universal fear. That even in broad daylight, among hundreds of people, a family can be torn apart in a heartbeat. Moreover, the case endures because it is unfinished. No body, no confession, no courtroom drama. The unanswered questions echo in national memory. What was the clothing Jane wore that day? Who saw the blue sedan? Why did the rotunda railing break? And above all, where are the Beaumont children now? Each year on January 26th, candlelight vigils flicker across Adelaide. Strangers gather on the beach at twilight, places named in their honor. Beaumont Crescent, the Beaumont Children's Playground, holding photos and flowers, renewing their promise to never forget. In schools, teachers retell the story, urging new generations to remain vigilant, to watch over one another when the world's attention drifts. The disappearance of the Beaumont children shaped Australia's approach to missing persons. It spurred the creation of systems for child identification, the standardization of public warnings, and the establishment of dedicated task forces. When a child goes missing today, Amber Alerts crackle through phones and television screens across the continent, a direct legacy of those little footprints that ended so abruptly on Glenelg sand. Yet for all the reforms and resources, one truth remains: no system can replace a mother's arms around her children, breathing warmth into their necks, listening to their laughter. Nancy Beaumont's heartbreak reminds us that behind every statistic, every case file, every procedural note stands a family and a mother whose world has been irrevocably altered. In the fading light of Glenelg Beach, where the surf still sings against the shore, the mystery of the Beaumont children endures. Their faces, captured forever in photographs, look out at us with wide eyes and hopeful smiles, as though waiting for someone, anyone, to bring them home. And so we pause here, at the edge of the precipice between past and present, as the tide laps gently at the sand. We light a candle for Jane, for Arnna, for Grant. We whisper their names into the wind. We promise that as long as one person remembers their story, they are never truly lost. Because some mysteries remain alive in memory, haunting us not with terror, but with the gentle ache of hope unfulfilled. reminding us that love can endure even the deepest vanishings, and that one day someone, somewhere, may piece together the final fragment of this old enigma.